And welcome back to Watch Us Tonight on Watchbox Studios. I am your host, Tim Masso. I'm not going to burn you with another 28-minute episode, so saddle up for this evening. We're discussing urban legends of the watch world and the best occasional watches for good times when nobody but your own two eyes are looking. All of that and your wrist shots this evening. Help my boss write my next check. There is no better place than thewatchbox.com to buy, trade, and sell your luxury watches. We are global 24 hours a day, especially when you're selling to us. We pay cash, we pay fast, we make it a no-brainer. Join me on Instagram, my other video platform, where you can binge watch my video Instagram reviews, 1-minute shots. Join me there, help me to hit 50K in 2K19, and then join me in person in Los Angeles. May 3rd to May 4th, Watch Time LA. It is an in-person event. We're going to have 27 luxury brands, including a number of independents, FP Journe, Romain Gauthier, HYT, Carrie Voudelaine, and all the majors, plus food, fun, and friends. But you got to be in it to begin it. Link in the description. Join me in LA, May 3rd to May 4th. All right, jumping into the boxes, we could see our viewer wrist shots to see your watches on this box. Josh F. swims off to St. Thomas with his Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. Love that aquamarine water. Alan P. dwells in the sky with his Rolex Skydweller GMT annual calendar. Lovely blue dial. Abdul R. frames his Fortis B42 Eastern Arabic dial against the canals of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And Mickey H. showcases Stockholm with his Tudor Blancpain S&G while on vacation with his wife. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. Jumping in, I can see we've got lots of friends joining us. We've got Ernesto from Germany. We've got Dustin from Tacoma, Washington. We have right here Sean from England. I can see that High and Rising's joining in from New York City, and Mike Stone from New Jersey. We've got friends from Far Flung, Sean from the UK staying up late with me, and Carlos from Panama. Welcome, guys. And of course, we have Jesus 841 from Texas, and Eric Nielsen from the mountains of North Carolina. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Myth from California, and we've got Elijah K from Australia. Thank you for getting up early, Elijah. You asked, and I answer. We have some watch community urban legends to bust. Now, this will be a continuing feature as you guys forward more to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com. But let's start with a big one that deals with Rolex 904L stainless steel. Is it definitively more durable than the more common 316L? Okay, this Rolex signature steel is no more durable from an impact resistance standpoint. It's not less susceptible to denting, scratching, or scuffing inherently. This is a steel, rather, that can be exposed to extreme corrosive conditions, like Zin U-boat style, which is able to enter a marine environment and not require rinsing. Rolex 904L is highly resistant to corrosion. It's resistant to some pretty gnarly acids, obviously to marine environments, extended exposure to salt and mineral deposits, but it's not necessarily tougher. That said, the Rolex 904L cases are constructed with this material and then cold forged, which does change the equation. A cold forged case will be tougher than a machined case. It will be more dent resistant, and that's one of the reasons that people often mistake 904L for a more durable steel. The Rolex case is more durable, but not because of the material it's made from, rather how it is made. Another Rolex myth, and a big one that won't die in spite of absolutely no evidence: Rolex Steve McQueen Explorers, reference 1655, are named after a famous owner and race car driver. I have never verified this with a photo, family auction, or a McQueen estate sale to document the claim that McQueen owned or even wore a Rolex 1655. As far as I can tell, this is a myth that was made up by an Italian auction house and then perpetuated endlessly by eBay sellers and blogs, some of which, in circular fashion, are also eBay sellers. In other words, not true. That said, there is definitely a convention behind the term, so it does have some redeeming value. It's usually applied to an early straight seconds 1655 with an orange arrow 24-hour hand, a Generation 1 bezel, and a Mark I dial, which is to say there is definitely some value in the term in as much as it's become a convention, but not because of the guy who owned one. If you want to own machinery that Steve McQueen verifiably rocked in his day, you might want to consider a Jaguar XKSS short nose. He definitely owned one of those, and if that's a little bit too much 8-figure car for you, well, consider a Rolex Submariner 5512 because McQueen verifiably wore one of those too. You and me both want that Jaguar. I don't know. Unless your bank account's in a different state than mine, it's going to remain a dream. But if you do have that car, send me one of the watches and wheels wrist shots from inside that Leaper. That's a hell of a Jag. Jumping right in, I can see Bud the Stud joining in from Colorado. I can see we've got Arvin Tomasini saying he wore a 5512. I agree. That was Mr. McQueen's watch of choice. We've got Grant C. Good evening, Mr. Masso. Good evening, Grant. And Brian Jones, welcome from California. Myth number 3. The 1969 Zenith El Primero was the first automatic chronograph caliber. Sort of. The 3 automatic chronograph calibers that claim to be the first all indisputably launched inside of the 1969 model year. And the El Primero was the first to be announced in a formal press conference in Geneva in January with a few pre-production pieces on hand. So there was definitely a press conference to announce that movement first, the original 3019 PHF. Here's the deal, though. The El Primero, though the first to be announced, was a prototype when announced. Heuer and Seiko beat Zenith to market, but since all were in consumer hands before the end of 1969, it's sort of a three-way tie from practical standpoint. Heuer, we'll take a quick look at the other contestants, in partnership with Buren, Breitling, and Hamilton, also launched an automatic chronograph series. It was the movement ultimately known as the Heuer Caliber 11. It was a fragile and excessively complex modular chronograph built on top of a Buren 1281 microrotor with a Dubois Dupraz module on the top. It got the job done and it created some distinctive pusher and crown layouts, but it was a fragile technological dead end, and I can tell you for a fact most watchmakers hate working on these. The Seiko 6139, however, was a glimpse of the future. Although by 1969 the quartz crisis was already brewing, largely due to what Seiko was doing on the side as it developed its automatic mechanical chronograph, this was a setup featuring vertical clutch and column wheel. It was a full 16 years before the Frederic Piguet 1185 and 30 years before the Rolex Daytona in-house caliber 4130. So shadows of the future, Seiko had the architecture that was a sign of things to come. But without a doubt, the El Primero has been the most enduring movement of the 3, inasmuch as it's still considered to be an industry standard in the year 2019, even as it celebrates its 50th anniversary. Grand Seiko. Myth number 4. Zaratsu polishing is in some way related to the craft art of finishing katana, wakizashi, or tanto Japanese swords. Well, the skilled labor that's invested in Zaratsu polishing is real. The eye-hand coordination, the craft art, the craftsmanship, the knowledge of the artisan, all of that is real, but the process is not related to anything you would have seen in Kill Bill, as much as Grand Seiko may suggest otherwise, and as much as I would like to imagine otherwise. European Zalats machines and related techniques were imported to Japan generations ago, and the craft art has been kept alive by Japanese artisans domestically. Smaller Japanese brands such as Manase actually offer watches with the same black-polished mirror finish executed on Zalus machines by hand-eye coordination. It's the exact same technique used by Seiko and Grand Seiko. Japanese case supplier Hashisesi Seizo does a brisk business in these Zalus finished cases, and if you've got a watch brand you want to start up, HSS can actually send you black polished Zaratsu finished cases for your own micro brand, which is to say it's an impressive craft art, but it is Japanese by way of Germany and Switzerland. Another myth, another Zenith myth, and an easy one to disprove. Zenith chose the name El Primero because it means the first in Esperanto, which is a popular auxiliary language and a bit of a linguistic curiosity. This is easily disproved whether you speak Esperanto or just have access to Google. So El Primero, of course, is Spanish for the first. Allegedly, however, and this is one of those good to know, several thousand people globally speak Esperanto natively as a first language. If that describes Junior, Mom and Dad did that kid no favors. Shame on you, parents. Jumping into the box, I can see right here, we've got Thad in Space joining us from Jerusalem, staying up late, and Gonzo joining us from Vienna, Austria. Likewise, Tommy from Puerto Rico joining us in, and a fan of the show. Welcome, folks. Welcome. I'm glad to have you with me. Vacheron Constantin. We've got a Vacheron myth. Vacheron Constantin's 1977 Model 222 sports watch was designed by Gerald Genta. Bogus, and Gerald Genta himself did nothing to dispel the myth. The prolific designer claims legitimate ownership of the 1972 AP Royal Oak, the 1976 Patek Philippe Nautilus 3700, and that year's Jumbo Ingenieur from IWC, the reference 1832. Around 1996, when Vacheron was launching the first overseas and crediting the design inspiration to the old 222, Genta gave some interviews that suggested he wouldn't dispel notions that he did in fact design the 222. Well, he didn't. To be fair, the 222 does include a bunch of 1970s Genta signatures in the integrated bracelet and case and lugs, the cushion case profile, the elevated, highly stylized bezel. All of these things were invented by Genta. That said, the similarity has been so confusing that even actual scholars of watch history have made the Genta connection by accident. To be fair, Robert Yan later annotated this article to reflect the correct designer, but this is just how deceptive and rumor-rife this particular urban legend was. Take a bow, Jorg Heisig. For a guy who has drawn some weird stuff in the past, you know how to play it straight and raise your game when necessary. Well done. He was in fact the man in his early 20s who designed the Vacheron 222. Jumping into the box right here, we have Brian Jones saying, Tim is in fact a robot with an encyclopedia complication. I am a quartz watch with a big battery. And you thought I was all about mechanical. Okay, myth that we got to dispel, which is the urban legend that Rado created the first ceramic watch with the Diastar 1 in 1962. In 62, the fine folks, and they are fine folks, from Lennau in Switzerland, launched a nearly scratch-proof watch with the shape of a lentil and the hardness of a jawbreaker. The Diastar was a technical breakthrough that included one of the industry's first ever sapphire crystals back in the heyday of the plexiglass era, so this was a watch ahead of its time. Subsequent efforts by journalists and even Rado itself have tried to tie this weird and wonderful Diastar to the modern-day ceramic watch trend. Urban legend, not the case. Rado's Diastar was constructed of a forged tungsten carbide, popularly known within the tool steel, tool metal industry as hard metal. This is the metal that's generally used to machine other tools, to make stainless steel tooling. And this tungsten carbide, forged under incredible temperature and pressure, is what was used to create the Diastar 1, and that forging process is the reason for the bizarre shape of the case. Regardless, it works. I've seen many 1960s vintage Rado Diastars that have no marks on them other than fingerprints. These are great vintage pickups because they're always in great shape. The Watch Lounge joining in, saying that Rado is different but funky cool. That shape was surprisingly influential. It became the shape of the 70s, and Rado introduced it just after the Eisenhower era. By the way, guys, do you need something for your wrist? Let me help you out. Would you like to win a free Rolex? Link in the description. Be in it and win it. We are giving away a Milgauss GV as our first ever international giveaway. Now, it's not completely global, but most of our largest markets, including the Far East and Europe, are eligible. So click the link in the description. This is a Milgauss 116400 GV. Excellent condition, full boxes, full paper. It's got everything except your wrist. So enter, and at the end of the month, I'm going to pick a winner. And for once, we can talk about winners from Germany, winners from Switzerland, winners from Hong Kong. Please win it. I want it to go to a YouTuber. Jumping into the box, we have Jose B asking, what's up? Any comments on the new Zenith oscillator movement? Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Dayfi Inventor. Let's get one in the hand first. It's an interesting technological innovation. Handmade horology is not. It will never be a hand-finished watch. It is an industrial product. Most of those parts pop out of machines, many of them computer-run. But in terms of technology, it's probably going to be one of the most accurate mechanical watches you can find. And in titanium at 44 millimeters, it's going to be a very wearable 44. Jumping into our main feature of the evening, the fat gent saying, I've always had a soft spot for Rado. So have I. They're actually one of my stealth favorites, and their designer series watches are awesome. The main feature, my favorite occasional watches. Watches that you wouldn't necessarily wear every day, but they cause the heart to skip a beat and race during vacations, parties, the weekends, all those good times when you can let your hair down. Not my hair, I don't have enough, but yours presumably. Without belaboring the point, we live in a rather colorless era, especially around the office, of steel sports watches. More often than not, those sports watches measure between 40 and 42 millimeters, feature a black or silver dial, and a full bracelet with either a rotating bezel, a chronograph, or both. Often the fun starts on the weekends, when we enjoy the license to break out the wrist-borne equivalents of a BMW i8 or a Mercedes-Benz Geländewagen 4x4 squared, especially in my favorite color. I actually love both of those cars. The i8 might be my next car. Don't encourage me. Today, we're talking about great avenues to escape, the ones that are too much for our life routines, but a wonderful way to get away. We're talking about the occasional fun watch, the over-the-top watch. We've discussed last week the De Bethune DB28 Digital, the HYT H20, and the Tread 1F. Those are personal favorites of mine. None of those are everyday watches, but we've talked about them. Just note that they're on my extended list. They aren't on tonight's list. And you might be surprised to see which watches did not make the list for the evening, because I consider them viable dailies in spite of their outward appearances, including both candidates to be my first Rolex watch. The Rolex Z Blue boasts unexpected refinement and shocking versatility, with a clean 40mm stainless steel case and a dial that mutes itself in low light. This is a watch most folks would wear routinely. And then there's the great white whale of the yacht club marina, the Yacht-Master White Gold Platinum. It is surprisingly viable as a daily driver, even if you don't daily drive an island packet. Credit the slick albino color palette, the all-white look, and the super Datejust case lines. This is a 44, a world removed from that other Rolex 44mm watch, which brings me to our first occasional watch of the evening, the Rolex Deepsea D Blue, 44mm, almost 18mm thick, made of steel and titanium, huge on the wrist, and I can vouch for that. Personally tried, pictures or it didn't happen. This is the closest Rolex will ever come to making a direct Hublot rival. It has the size, the extravagant dial fade in blue and black lacquer with green accents, the diving specs that align with absolutely nobody's office routine. Rated to 12,800 feet, equipped with a helium escape valve for saturation diving, and strapped with an insane clasp, featuring 2 separate systems for deployment. Nobody needs this watch. And that might make the Rolex Deepsea D Blue the most luxurious Rolex available. If, after all, luxury is about getting more than you need, what could be more luxurious than that gratuitous dial fade and enough diving tech to make a missile sub-captain jealous? From one big blue watch to another, the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean GMT Big Blue. At Baselworld 2017, Omega rolled out a trio of vintage reeditions from the Stolid and Sober stainless steel 60th anniversary trilogy collection. The Planet Ocean GMT Big Blue was nothing like those. My favorite Omega watch of 2017, it's over the top, 45.5mm in blue ceramic, polished and satin, with the GMT complication white gold dial features and a ceramic dial gloss in blue with orange accents all the way around, including on the strap. This watch was about looking forward, not back. That despite a name that lovingly paid deference to the 1970s Omega Seamaster 120 chronograph, affectionately nicknamed the Big Blue. That cult watch lending its name, not as a nickname, but officially, can we go full screen there? Officially lending the name Big Blue to this Omega Planet Ocean in blue ceramic. And there's the proof, right on the case back. This is the Big Blue by name and by reputation. Even better, a breathtaking $11,700 price point made this an extravagant watch by price and design, with outrageous colors and enormous at 45.5mm. You can see this one almost 20mm thick on my wrist. It means that few will take the plunge with Big Blue. But this Omega Seamaster is the ultimate upmarket beach party favor. Wear with pride when you're playing beach volleyball. And then I could see Jumbo Jet Pilot saying, the big blue can be an inspiration for a blue side of the moon. It was, and that exists. And I could see Myth is saying that's my favorite planet ocean, and Clay Clement saying I love the deep sea, especially the post-2017 126660. And then right here we have Matthew M saying talk more about the white gold Yacht-Master, please. I'm a fan. Get the post-2017 dial version of that watch. You will have one of the rarest modern Rolex timepieces. I'm going to do a whole episode on special modern Rolex watches, so I'm saving my powder. Just know I'm in love with the albino Yacht-Master II, and I'm very seriously considering doing a corporate buy through my company. Employee status has its benefits. All right, Zenith. A Zenith watch that's not a chronograph. The Zenith Academy Georges Favre-Jacot. I fell in love with this 45mm rose gold watch in 2015, and I hate big rose gold colored watches. Call me a convert. At $87,000 or $82,700 and 150 pieces, I would say too little in both cases. It's that good. 2015 marked 150 years since founder Favre-Jacot created Zenith, the manufacturer of LeCoultre, a pioneering full integrated manufacturer, and of course the producer of this particular highlight watch. Because with a fusee and chain, constant force device. This was one hell of a Zenith birthday present to itself and its collectors. This is a fusee and chain that channels the best of 18th century watchmaking into a thoroughly modern package while adding exquisite detailing and hundreds of moving parts. I'm talking 797 parts in this movement, which is also a certified chronometer. Can we go full screen with that image? It features the same multiplication ratio and basically the same principle involved in bicycle gears. You have a torque magnification system that increases the torque to the mainspring barrel as a bigger and bigger ratio is created on the fusee as the mainspring barrel discharges. It is an antique pocket watch intent constant force device, the oldest constant force device that exists. The system works like a bicycle, which is another thing I love, so my heart skips 2 beats, not 1. It was a perfect Zenith. No. It was a perfect watch. Zenith actually launched a titanium version of this watch a year later, but it cannot compare to the opulent romance of the granular dial and warm rose gold tones of the original. Too much for every day, sure, but what a weekend watch. Jumping into the box right here, I can see we have Richard Combs saying thoughts on limited edition Seiko Alpinist Blue Dial. I like it. The price is right. And if you're into Seiko, I say go for it. A lovely piece. I would say make sure you consider Zinn's new 2019 Blue Dials. They're special in their own right. So consider both Germany and Japan. You have alternatives to Switzerland. Just consider all of them. Jumping right in to a watch I've often discussed, and we seem to mutually love, both host and audience, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms reference 5015. This watch came out in 2007, and it hasn't aged a day. If some of the other watches on this list are like cars too extreme to drive daily, then this decadent dive watch is the horological equivalent of having your own on-staff 3-time-a-day French chef who feeds you millefeuille pastry after every meal, a meal of duck and foie gras. It's that rich. This could be a daily, even on a smaller wrist, but it almost seems wrong to indulge in such lush details on a regular basis. This watch is so special, you almost feel like you need to keep it bottled up, a secret sauce, an elixir for your bad days. The watch is an experience, in short, Gesundheit, that needs to be saved. This 50 Fathoms is the works, a 5-day automatic, anti-magnetic, fully diveable with 300-meter water resistance, screw-down crown. In short, it's a real dive watch that can absolutely handle the daily churn, but it's also beautiful, like a perpetual dewdrop on your wrist, thanks to the gloss dial, the vaulted sapphire cap of the bezel, and the high polish case. Go big and full bracelet at full price for $17,200. That X71 wrist chain is more fabulously finished and buttery than any Rolex Oyster. I would say it gives the Jubilee a run for its money in comfort, while being tougher and more tightly assembled than the Oyster. Great stuff. Rolex, what you got? You got a response for me? Believe it. Rolex GMT-Master II anniversary dial. This watch took my breath away the first time I saw it in person. It doesn't need airbrushing, it doesn't need press photos to amaze. A big yellow gold sports watch, Rolex no less, is not my style, but I can't help myself. I'm drawn to that dial. It's explosive, it's lush, it's glossy, it's deep, it looks wet, it has a life of its own. It's crafted from green lacquer and laced with apropos yellow gold accents. This was actually the 2005 debut model of the first super case milled bracelet solid link GMT. So this is a historically important Rolex watch. It's discontinued now and avidly sought. When we get them, they sell quickly. If I had to pick a colored gold current day Rolex sports watch with projectable long-term investment value, I would tentatively endorse this one. It's tough to say a gold Rolex sports watch is going to gain money long-term, especially when it's colored gold, but the demand for this watch is so strong in 2019, I cannot imagine 2029, 2039, and 2049. Get on, because that GMT is taking off. Jumping in, I would also say it has a magnetic combination of Rolex corporate green and yellow gold with that black Cerachrome bezel. It shouldn't work, but somehow it does. It's too much, and I celebrate its success. Hublot Big Bang Mecha 10 blue ceramic. Let me jump real quick into the box right here. I've got Louis Padnos saying 50 Fathoms Ocean Commitment Limited is 40mm secret weapon. If you like the Ocean Commitment colors, get the bathyscaphe in gray ceramic with the blue dial and the blue liquid metal insert ceramic bezel. That's like an Ocean Commitment without any of the weird and wonky logos. And I can see right here, we have Brick Lane saying, I wish they made the 5015 in 40mm. And Lionel Borsi saying, if you want to invest $10,000 in a watch, what should I buy that will gain value in my opinion? I would say if you want to invest $10,000 in a watch and something that's likely to gain a little bit of value over time, you want to go with something that's kind of appreciated now, but likely to be more so over time. So I would say buy yourself a Grand Seiko SPGA 387, the US Boutique Limited Edition with the Kirazuri dial, and I think you'll be set. Alternatively, the Quattro Chopard LUC, the first of the Quattros, they are Geneva Hallmark 9-day power reserve COSC chronometers that you can buy right now in rose and yellow gold for under 10 grand. I think they are the next frontier in high horology. Consider those to be fair game. Alternatively, buy the MIH watch. I think that will gain value in time. Jumping back to Hublot, because how can we have an occasional weekend watch feature without an Hublot? No summer fun list of occasional watches would be complete without one from the Porthole people. I'm not into paying Hublot money for unmodified customer calibers, but the manufacturer movements are a different story. Those are worth the extra coin. So let's run the roster. As if to acknowledge that a giant blue skeleton sports watch isn't a weekday watch, Hublot equipped the Mecha 10 with caliber 1201. It is a 10-day manual wind, which is great if the watch is in a rotation. You pick that watch up on Friday, strap it for the weekend, it's still ticking. Wind it again, it's a once-a-week ritual that you will enjoy. For the sake of fun and excess, Hublot even equipped the watch, if you can stick with that image, maybe make it full screen. Hublot equipped the watch with two separate power reserves. One at 3 o'clock that turns red when you get down to the final 2 days of power reserve. And then there's the one down at 6 o'clock that tracks the full 10 days. And the power reserves, both of them, are driven by a rack and pinion system across the top of the dial. All of that inspired by Meccano kits, so it's a wonderful toy for adults who never grow up. It's 100 meters water resistant, it's swimmable, it's almost scratch proof because of the ceramic, and Hublot quick release lugs allow easy strap swapping if you want to dress it up a bit with alligator or dress it down with a different colored rubber. But if you want an even more scratch resistant wild watch from the Porthole folks in Nyon, Switzerland, consider the Unico blue ceramic. This thing will blow you away. With its sapphire case laced with blue accents, this is a watch that looks and feels truly toy-like, but it's incredible. It's almost impossible to scratch or scuff. It's an absolute dream to wear because of the lightness and the comfort, and it is unlike anything else you will encounter for under $50,000. Jumping into the box right here, I can see Joseph King joining in from the Jersey Shore. Lionel Borsey saying thanks for the insight, Tim, on the investment watches. And I can see Brooke Lane saying, Mark 1 like the mil-spec, but ultimately would like a 50-15, 50 fathoms, and 40 millimeters. It would be great and a direct and strong competitor to the sub. Like I said, the 50-15 is getting old. 13 model years now. We're probably going to see a new version of it soon, probably next year, and probably in a smaller case size. From a brand that practically invented the modern-day dream watch, the Ulysse Nardin Freak Vision. This was my selection for Best in Show at SIHH 2018, and I didn't have to think twice. Without a blink, I named this the Best in Show, the watch I most wanted to wear out of the show, and a year later, I feel even more confident in that choice. The 2017 Innovision, the Freak Experiment watch, a concept watch, essentially. A concept watch being the equivalent of a concept car that you see at a show. You don't expect that to become a production reality. But just 1 year later, you can imagine my surprise when I found almost all of the technologies from the Innovision 2 had been incorporated into a production-ready 2018 Freak Vision. Let's run the roster, count the superlatives. Can we go full screen with all these guys? Because the details matter. Start with the extreme dial depth that permits wonderful lateral and diagonal viewing of the baguette-style carousel. It's like a tourbillon, but it's more durable. It's a carousel that doubles as the hour hand, and you'll note that it features a full silicon drivetrain. That's the Innovision that inspired it, but a full silicon drivetrain, balance, constant force escapement, and anti-magnetic hairspring, all of them from the Innovision into the Freak Vision. So it's basically the production reality. You can see that. You can see the silicon hairspring, the silicon constant force escapement, the silicon drivetrain. Heck, you can even see that they used clear sapphires rather than colored sapphires to keep the two-tone blue and grayscale intact. All of this is made in-house by Ulysse Nardin's Sigatech subsidiary. So unlike Patek and Rolex and Swatch, who developed their silicon technology together, UN developed it separately and owns its tech outright. Plus, there is the Grinder, which is the first automatic winding system in a Freak, and clearly named after a Judas Priest heavy metal classic from British Steel. Grinder! Looking for meat. Case finish on the 45mm platinum canister is high luxury spec. We talked about hand-finished cases earlier in the show. This is it at its best. New school technology inside, old school finish on the outside, and rich blue tones of the dial do justice to Ulysse Nardin's nautical marine chronometer heritage. $95,000 almost seems like a bargain with this watch. I can imagine the hypothetical Richard Mille pricing scale for this watch if it hailed from the folks at Richard Mille. This would be a $500,000 watch. UN, remarkably honest and with economies of scale, making all this technology in-house. I have seriously thought of restarting my collection with the theme being Ulysse Nardin. Sonata, Freak Vision, Marine Chronometer, UN 160. There are almost too many prospects before we even get into the GMT plus minus perpetuals and the celestials. UN, a very interesting brand that has my eye and is beginning to pull at my heartstrings. One that we have never discussed on the show from the company that pulled at my heartstrings when I first joined this fraternity of collectors, Jaeger LeCoultre. With the Master Compressor Extreme Lab, not the Extreme Lab 2, the original Extreme Lab from 2007. Only built at most 3 to 4 examples per year. In total, this watch was probably built in about 1 to 2 dozen copies. You never see the Extreme Lab 1, and there is a reason for that. It does exist in consumer hands, and from what I understand, the price was north of $250,000 to get one, with the delivery time from order to recipient being about 1 year. Why? Well, for starters, it was a tourbillon GMT. The movement was caliber 988C, and it was very tech. Let's start with the rotor. The rotor itself was made of carbon fiber. The mass was made of platinum iridium. The bridges of the movement were made of aluminum titanium alloy. It was a completely unlubricated movement. There was no oil, there was no grease. The pivots were made of iridium. The mainspring barrel was lubricated with graphite powder. The escapement was constructed of silicon on the wheel side with an anchor made of synthetic diamond. Yes, this was truly a laboratory. Almost none of these technologies made it into the Extreme Lab 2, and the watch remains effectively a one-off offering, a standalone and a high watermark for Jaeger LeCoultre technology. Can we go back to a picture of the Extreme Lab? At most 24 of these were made, and I would say that if you're looking for the ultimate Jaeger LeCoultre sports watch, maybe even the ultimate modern-day JLC complication, it's between this and the Grand Sonnery. The numerical advantage, I'm not sure. Somewhere around a dozen of each were made. This could very easily be your everyday beater. The Grand Sonnery could not. If you need a weekend watch par excellence with the shock resistance, the temperature resistance, and the water resistance to match, guys, if you've got one of these, send me a wrist shot. I've never seen one. I've never even seen a photo from one of my viewers of this watch. And JLC, if you're watching, forward a shot. Heck, forward one, I'll put it up on Instagram. Viewer wrist shots. From those who did forward their watches to see their pieces on my pixels, Raphael C. strikes an appealing and appetizing pose with some vino and his discontinued Rolex Sea-Dweller 40. Breton B. frames a shot of Tahoe with his Rolex Oyster Perpetual white dial. Lovely composition. Roy S. takes a family portrait on the occasion of his daughter's 5th birthday, she wearing the Timex Unicorn with an Omega household, and John V. models tactical couture with his Zinn 757-2 purchased at the Zinn Frankfurt factory store. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your watches on this box. And remember, links in the description to join me at LA, Watch Time LA, live 2 days of fun, friends, food, and watches, and enter to win the Rolex Milgauss GV full box and papers for our first international giveaway. Comment and subscribe in the boxes below this video and join me, Tim_Masso, on Instagram, where the fun continues when this broadcast ends. Time out, Tim out, and thank you for logging on.